Scott, and I'm here with Amy Christine Parker. We're going to be talking about her new book, Gated.
Hi.
Hello.
It's good to be here.
Good to be here too. So I'm going to just ask you a few questions. So the first one, how do you get the writing process started?
Usually, for me, it starts with an idea. Some people say it starts for them with a character in their head, this voice that talks to them. And my process is not nearly as crazy, but it's the whole idea for me comes usually when I'm watching a television program or I'm out somewhere and it's a situation. So for this book, for instance, I was watching a documentary on underground shelters and people who are preparing for the apocalypse back when the Mayan apocalypse was a big deal. And it just fascinated me that people were spending so much money to make these underground dwellings, basically, and that they were deciding which of their family members were going to go with them, and it was like a huge thing that preoccupied a large percentage of their time. And so for me, that was where the idea started. It was with this, who are these people that are building these shelters, and what is their life like, and what would it be like to be in their head? And so my inspiration kind of comes from other shows or from life around me.
Okay, cool. And when you write, what in particular do you look for?
When I write, you mean what kind of style or?
Yeah, style or character development, anything along those lines.
Well, I start with character sketches, and basically that means that I take pictures off of the internet. Sometimes they're regular people, sometimes they're movie stars, and if they look like my character or remind me of them somehow, I will take that picture and then I build the characters and I build the situation. So I start with that situation, then I put the people who would be most miserable in that situation in that book, and I pick pictures of them. I decide what they like, what they don't like, what their history is like. So there's a lot that happens that doesn't ever make it into the book, but I just need to understand in order to write the characters well.
So basically you start off with the looks of them. So if you want a character that looks scruffy, you look at the looks.
Exactly,
Okay.
right, because when I go to write, what they're looking like, it helps me to look at a visual picture.
Okay. So you're here with our students in school. So I'm here to ask what do you say to the students in particular? Anything you say?
Writing advice?
Yeah, writing advice. Anything.
Well, I think the biggest advice is whatever you choose to do, if it's something that you love, you should go for it. It took me a long time to realize that writing was possible for me, because it felt like American Idol or, acting or singing or one of those sort of far-flung professions where it's just so hard to get in and the statistics are really against you. So I really didn't try it for a really long time. And then when I got a little bit older and a little bit braver, I decided to try. And when I did, I realized that if I worked really hard and tried, it was attainable. So for me, the biggest advice is that you shouldn't be afraid to go for your dreams. You should just go for it and work as hard as you can towards them.
So I heard this is your first book. So I heard that. So what made you actually want to push and do it? Just like it was just like a dream. Like I always wanted to write a book, so let me just write one now.
Yeah, it was almost a compulsion. So I actually spent time walking around my house in the middle of the night, pacing. I really want to be a writer, and I really love books, and that would be, to me, the dream job. So what can I do to make that happen? And I was a teacher, and I taught younger kids, 5th grade, but I always kind of liked high school. I substitute taught in high school, and that was sort of what I gravitated towards, those types of kids. And I like the idea that your life is just starting and you have all of these things set out in front of you and you're sort of deciding who you are and what you're going to stand for as a teenager. So that is fascinating to me, and I wanted to write for teens. And the idea of writing a book that teens could relate to was very cool. So that was part of where it came from.
So what in particular is the book about?
My book is called Gated, and it's about a girl who has grown up in an apocalyptic cult. And a cult is basically a group of people who have a similar belief system that pull themselves away from the world and stay together and sort of distrust anyone who's outside of their belief system. And so for this girl, she grew up inside this community that's very suburban, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. So the closest town is 100 miles away. They have a pool and a clubhouse, and it's all gated in all of these homes with sidewalks, and it's just really pretty. But at the back of the community, beneath an apple orchard, is this underground doomsday shelter that they've been building. And the whole entire group believes that the end of the world is coming. And when the book starts, the end of the world is about 3 months out. So they're at the end of their preparations, and they're preparing to seal themselves underground for several years. And so she's really trying to figure out at this point, does she really think it's the end of the world? And if it isn't, what is she going to do about it?
Oh, that actually sounds really interesting. So you said previously that you're actually a big fan of books in general. So
Yes.
can you give me maybe a few books or one book in particular that you really like, and some authors as well?
Well, I can give you an author. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, huge.
Oh, okay,
So
yeah.
I really like horror. I really like thrillers. I really like anything that's sort of creepy. Stephen King spoke to me. So in 6th grade, I started reading his short stories. There's one called Grandma, and it's about this sort of evil grandmother that takes over her grandson's soul, and it's the scariest story. It freaked me out, and I've loved him ever since because he kept me up at night, basically. So he's my favorite.
So would you count him as an inspiration for you actually wanting to begin to write?
Absolutely, 100%, yeah.
So, anything you'd like to add?
Let's see, buy the book. That would maybe be one thing. And if you would like to buy the book, you can always go to any major book retailer. It's in Amazon. It's also at Barnes & Noble. And you can find it basically anywhere that you go in the mall or wherever you have your nearest bookstore. So I would love it if you went out and bought it.
Thank you very much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Juan Pagan, and back to the Eagle Eye.